The story began inside an old, run-down house where a man and his wife were being brutally beaten by a group of loan sharks. One of them even pressed a hot iron onto the man's thigh, making his skin sizzle like a burnt omelette. Blood dripped from his mouth as he begged them for just one more month to repay the loan. But the loan shark leader, still holding the iron, smiled coldly and said that if the man had borrowed money from someone else, he should just sell his organs and pay up because a real man owns up to his debts. Then, gripping the man's neck, he got ready to burn his face too. He said they both needed to feel pain to understand what it's like when people don't get their money back. Just as he moved the iron toward the man's face, his eyes landed on the trembling woman, who was gasping and fiddling with her phone. He quickly snatched the phone from her and yelled, asking if she was calling the police or trying to talk to a dead man. But when he looked at the screen, he was stunned. She had been texting her son. The message read, "Son, don't come home," but she hadn't sent it yet. The leader suddenly got excited. A dark idea popped into his head. What was the use of beating these two when their son could also be involved? He said it'd be more fun to make the boy suffer too. The couple started crying and pleading for their son to be spared, but no one cared. The leader instructed his men to shut them up, saying their screams might scare the boy away. So they gagged the couple and tied them up against the wall. Just then, their son, Seonwoo, arrived. He was a high school student and the real hero of this story. As soon as he opened the door, his mom, crying silently with a gag in her mouth, desperately tried to signal him not to enter. But it was too late. Seonwoo stepped in. The loan sharks were already waiting. Casually, Seonwoo took off his shoes, adjusted his backpack, and announced he was home. Before he could even process the strange vibe in the room, one of the men hit him on the head with a rod. His mother thought he was done for. But that's when everything flipped. Seonwoo, unfazed, grabbed the guy by the shoulder and delivered a punch so fierce that the man's face twisted into something unrecognizable. It looked so bad that even if the guy landed in hell, the devils might politely decline entry. Everyone stood frozen, completely stunned. The leader started sweating bullets. He quickly realized this boy wasn't someone you could win against in a normal fight. Shouting in panic, he ordered all his men to attack together and even told them to kill Seonwoo if needed. One of the goons charged, but Seonwoo easily dodged the attack. At the same time, he slammed his fist into another thug's ribs so hard that multiple ribs cracked. That guy dropped his rod and gasped for air. But Seonwoo wasn't done. He delivered another heavy punch to the same spot. This time, the ribs were completely crushed. Then he grabbed the first attacker by the leg and smashed him with a powerful kick, shattering his bones like dry twigs. 3 men were already down. Another genius thought attacking with a chair was a smart move. He actually smacked Seonwoo on the head with it, but surprise, zero effect. Seonwoo picked him up and threw him against the wall, knocking him out cold. The leader was now in full panic mode. His plan had turned into a complete disaster. Thinking maybe he could still scare Seonwoo by threatening his dad, he turned to look at him, but too late. Seonwoo had already picked up the same hot iron they used earlier, grabbed the leader by the head, and pressed it straight into the wall. There was a loud crack. His neck snapped. That was the end. Not a single attacker was left standing. Breathing heavily, Seonwoo stumbled toward his parents and untied their ropes. Before collapsing, he muttered, "If we weren't poor, I'd never have needed to fight." And with that, he passed out right there. A few hours later, several ambulances pulled up to the hospital, carrying the loan sharks and their gang. They were all howling in pain. The doctors were freaking out, overwhelmed by the condition of the patients. Meanwhile, a man wearing glasses stood at the reception desk. He asked the nurse calmly what was going on. She replied, just as calmly, "A high school student beat up an entire gangster group alone." The man nearly dropped his glasses in shock. Right then, the loan shark boss was wheeled past on a stretcher with a neck brace. Gasping, he called over a new lackey and ordered him to find and finish off the boy who did this to them. But the underling informed him that the boy was already admitted to this same hospital. Then, with a little smirk, he added, "No problem. Black Bear just went in, so that kid is as good as gone." Hearing this, the man with glasses froze. The moment he heard the name Black Bear, his face went pale. Without wasting a second, he turned to the nurse and urgently asked which room the high school boy was in. The nurse replied, "Room 202. That was it. He bolted straight toward room 202, running past the emergency ward, heart pounding. In his mind, he kept thinking, if this is the same Black Bear I know from this area, then that guy's their top fighter candidate. He had to see Black Bear in action to truly understand his real strength. So instead of entering room 202, the man with glasses paused at the door and peeked inside. Deep down, he did feel a little bad for Seonwoo, but curiosity had the upper hand. He was more eager to witness Black Bear's power firsthand. Inside the room, Seonwoo was still connected to an IV drip, yet he stood facing Black Bear without an ounce of fear. Black Bear mumbled to himself, wondering why he had been summoned for what he expected to be a serious threat, only to find some high school kid instead. Then he told Seonwoo not to take it personally. He had debts to collect too. But he admitted Seonwoo was interesting because unlike most, this kid wasn't scared. That's when Black Bear smirked and said he'd now show Seonwoo what real fear looked like. But Seonwoo didn't let him finish his speech. He instantly launched a lightning-fast jab. Unfortunately, Black Bear was even faster. He slapped Seonwoo across the face so hard that Seonwoo dropped to the floor like a mosquito swatted with a fly swatter. Blood poured from Seonwoo's mouth as he lay there coughing. From outside, the man with glasses looked genuinely impressed. Black Bear's speed was insane. He was living up to the hype. Chuckling, Black Bear told Seonwoo that no matter how wild he acted, if he dared to look him in the eyes and fight, he'd always end up on the ground. But the very next moment shocked everyone. Seonwoo slowly stood up, wiped the blood off his face, and replied that Black Bear sure talked a lot for someone who had nothing to back it up. That line annoyed Black Bear, but it also excited him. He liked that Seonwoo wasn't afraid. That thrill of facing someone who stood their ground, that was the real fun. The man with glasses, however, was getting nervous now. He realized Black Bear wasn't just playing around, he genuinely intended to kill Seonwoo. Just as he was about to rush inside, Seonwoo dodged Black Bear's first strike and delivered a sharp kick straight to his face. The man outside stood frozen in shock. He had never imagined anyone could land a clean hit on Black Bear, but Black Bear caught himself mid-fall using his hands, preventing a total collapse. The man with glasses felt a brief wave of relief. After all, Black Bear was known nationwide as the physical king. He wasn't someone who'd go down that easily. Black Bear grinned and mocked, asking if Seonwoo really thought a high schooler's kick could knock him down. But before he could finish talking, Seonwoo landed a powerful punch directly to his face, slamming it into the ground. Black Bear collapsed. Now even the man with glasses couldn't believe what he was seeing. It felt impossible, but Seonwoo didn't stop there. He launched a furious barrage of punches, one after another, like he was giving Black Bear a crash course in street wisdom with his fists. Struggling, Black Bear somehow managed to grab Seonwoo around the waist and began to squeeze hard. The move caught Seonwoo off guard. Black Bear growled that using his ultimate move on a high schooler felt shameful, but at least now things were getting fun. The guy with glasses immediately recognized the move, the bone crusher, the kind of attack no one usually survives. He thought the fight needed to be stopped right away, but then he froze. Seonwoo was still moving. Black Bear couldn't understand why Seonwoo's bones weren't breaking. Meanwhile, Seonwoo was pushing himself up with all his strength. Then suddenly he lifted his head and slammed it straight into Black Bear's skull. The brutal headbutt hit so hard, Black Bear's grip broke instantly. For a second he even wondered if Seonwoo had metal implants in his bones. But Seonwoo didn't stop there. He headbutted again and again. Skull cracked, teeth flew out, and Black Bear's face started looking like mashed potatoes. The guy with glasses shouted that the guy was already unconscious. He told Seonwoo to chill out or the cleanup would turn into a full-blown nightmare. He quickly called someone and reported a head trauma from a car accident. Room 202 in Building B. Seonwoo, looking drained and weak now, asked the glasses guy who he even was. In response, he handed over a business card and calmly said the person on that card could give Seonwoo everything he wanted. Seonwoo was confused. He asked if this man was part of the same team. Glasses guy chuckled and said no. He was actually hoping to be on Seonwoo's team. Just then, a group of masked men walked into the room. Their job was to pick up Black Bear and clean up the mess. One of them asked the glasses guy if the status had been confirmed and if they should wrap things up. He nodded and told them to make sure Black Bear didn't wake up for a while. The masked guy simply replied, "Okay," and the cleanup began. Seonwoo just sat there, thinking about who these people even were. Glasses guy again offered him the card, saying the contact on it belonged to someone who could give him exactly what he wanted. Seonwoo took it but still had no clue what this was really about. Glasses man said all Seonwoo had to do was fight for the one he chose to serve. But Seonwoo clenched the card in his fist, glared at him, and told him to get lost. Then he tossed the card straight into the trash and snapped that he didn't need to fight to earn money, and whatever scam this guy was running now, he wasn't buying it. He stormed out of the room. The glasses guy didn't follow, but deep down, he knew that people's minds can change eventually. A few minutes later, Seonwoo was in the men's washroom splashing water on his bruised face. He muttered to himself that no matter how messed up his life was, at least he should have kept his mom's wish to never get into fights. That's when his father walked in and asked what he was doing there in this condition. Seonwoo, clearly angry, shot back that his dad should be the one explaining how things got this bad. He asked how, despite being a boxing champion, his father had ended up drowning in debt. There were opportunities, right? Or was this another story about how his champion pride was bigger than some local gym? Seonwoo didn't even know why he was kicked off the national team, but seriously, was that useless pride more important than his weak and sick mother? His father stayed silent, not a single word in response. Then, without explaining anything, he turned around and walked out of the washroom. All he said before leaving was, "Don't go anywhere. Stay in the hospital." Moments later, Seonwoo suddenly felt dizzy. His head spun, and he nearly collapsed. He sat down on the floor, confused about what was happening. Maybe it was from lack of sleep, but the pain in his head was more intense than usual. He muttered to himself that his head only ached like this when he thought about him because he hated him. That him was his father. He hated the man who always came home covered in injuries, and who kept bowing to the parents of the bullies Seonwoo fought with. He couldn't trust his father and didn't want to believe that whatever his father had done was necessary. But deep down, he still felt like he was sinking into a pit, helpless and stuck. After all, what could a high schooler do? Especially one who wasn't even allowed to step onto a deep-sea fishing boat. Life felt impossible to fix. He couldn't even cover daily expenses anymore. His delivery bike, technically the company's, got wrecked, all because he refused to hang out with the school bullies. And thanks to those bullies, his father's debt kept growing. He couldn't even run away and leave his sick mom behind. His life was in a complete mess. Suddenly he opened his eyes and realized he was lying on a hospital bed. His head throbbed with pain, and he had no memory of being moved to another room. He pulled out his phone to check how long he'd been asleep, but the moment he saw a text from his dad, his mood crashed again. He opened the message. It read, "It's time I tell you everything." Seonwoo sat there stunned. What the hell has he been hiding now, he thought. Then it hit him he should check on mom. He called his father immediately and asked how she was doing. But his dad told him not to come home. There were gangsters hiding there. Dangerous ones. He explained that Seonwoo had been moved to a different hospital room under a new name for his own safety. Panic began to rise in Seonwoo's chest. Then where's mom, he asked. His father told him she was hiding in a motel near the police station. She was safe, but he couldn't talk for long. He told Seonwoo not to go anywhere and abruptly cut the call. Seonwoo sat in silence, blaming himself himself for everything. If he hadn't gotten involved with those gangsters, maybe none of this would have happened. He made up his mind he would go find his mother no matter what. But just as he was about to rush out, his phone rang again. The caller ID said Dad. He picked it up instantly. But the voice on the other end wasn't his father's. The man on the call spoke nervously, asking if he was speaking to Mr. Seonwoo. Seonwoo confirmed, but quickly asked who he was. The man replied with panic in his voice something terrible had happened. His dad had collapsed and was unconscious. It was a serious work accident. His father had suffered multiple broken bones and ribs. A few hours later, Seonwoo stood in the intensive care unit, staring at his badly injured and unconscious father. The doctor explained that the surgery was extremely complex. Just the surgical cost alone would exceed 100 million won, and that wasn't even including the long-term treatment and rehabilitation. Tears streamed down Seonwoo's face. He had no clue where he would get that kind of money. He didn't even know where to start. Then, he suddenly remembered the red business card he had thrown in the trash. Without wasting another second, he sprinted back to the room where he'd been treated earlier. After a few minutes of running, he reached room 212, but it was completely empty. Cleaned out. Not a trace of anyone left. Seonwoo dropped to the ground sobbing. He blamed himself for everything. He whispered apologies to his father and, in complete despair, cried out that he wished he had died instead. Then, from behind, a familiar voice asked if he was looking for the red business card. It was the man with the glasses. He asked if Seonwoo had changed his mind. Seonwoo didn't waste a second. He asked how much money they could offer. The man adjusted his glasses and calmly said, "At least 10 billion won if you win. And even if you lose, as long as you gain popularity, you'll still make a fortune." Then he asked again, so interested in working with us in the next scene. The glasses man, whose name was now revealed to be Kim, handed Seonwoo a contract in a sleek office. Kim told him to read it carefully and sign it only when he was ready. Seonwoo picked up the papers and noticed a phrase that caught his eye: fighting ward. He asked what it meant. Kim explained that it was a secret underground fighting tournament. The fighters who joined weren't just ordinary people. They had monstrous strength, thanks to dangerous doping drugs given in certain hospitals. Seonwoo was shocked. He immediately asked if they were seriously into doping people. He refused outright, saying he didn't want to be involved in anything like that. But Kim calmly started showing him samples of the drugs. He explained that these weren't just any ordinary substances, some were so powerful they could give monstrous strength even to elderly people. Of course, he added, the use of such drugs was completely optional, not mandatory. Seonwoo narrowed his eyes and asked who Kim really was. Kim adjusted his glasses again and apologized for the late introduction. He introduced himself as Kim Manak, a scout working under a very important individual who participated in the fighting ward. Seonwoo still had no idea who this mysterious person was, but Kim told him not to worry about the identity just yet. For now, what mattered was the decision and the drugs. Then Kim told Seonwoo that no one had ever won the tournament without doping, but Seonwoo stayed firm he wasn't going to dope. Kim shrugged and said he wouldn't bring it up again, adding that once they were in the arena, everything would become clear. Seonwoo sighed, thinking the guy clearly wasn't listening to him. Kim then explained the tournament system. If a fighter made it into the top 20, they could choose a sponsor, an important person who could help them rise all the way to victory. Seonwoo, unimpressed, said he got the point and just wanted the money, nothing else. Calmly, Kim replied that there was a problem with his request. Payment was only possible through the tournament. Frustrated, Seonwoo yelled, asking if Kim was kidding him. If there was no guaranteed money, why should he even bother? Kim told him to relax. He knew Seonwoo needed the money for his father's surgery and also wanted to keep his parents safe. Seonwoo froze. How did Kim know all that? But Kim didn't answer. Instead, he told Seonwoo to just focus on fighting. His team would take care of the surgery, the safety, and even the debt. Seonwoo felt a little emotional but still asked how he was supposed to trust him. Right then, his phone rang. It was his mom. He picked up immediately, asking if everything was okay. His mom said she'd heard the hospital bills were paid, and even bodyguards had shown up. Seonwoo was stunned. When did he do all that quietly? Kim said it had already been handled. A safe house was also ready for his parents. Then he admitted honestly they had no one else but Seonwoo. Trying to stay calm, Seonwoo told his mom those people were from his side and she should listen to them. He promised to come soon and hung up. Then, turning back to Kim with a serious look, he asked why the prize money was so high, 10 billion won. Kim replied that 10 billion was just the base prize. The more bets placed, the higher the amount. One winner had even earned 15 billion. Seonwoo was stunned. That's insane. Kim agreed it was possible but warned him of the dark side. 90% of participants either died or were permanently disabled. Only 10% made it out in one piece. Seonwoo asked how so many people died without anyone finding out. Kim said that's exactly why the whole thing was a secret. Once someone signed the contract, they were officially declared dead. That was the beauty of their hospital system. Kim explained that the hospital was the perfect place to fake a death, disappearance, illness, fall, drugs, whatever was needed. Seonwoo then asked what would happen if he reported all of this. Kim replied with a chilling tone it wouldn't be hard to make him look like a crazy drug addict. And besides, who would believe a lunatic talking about a tournament that officially didn't even exist? Before Seonwoo could say more, Kim added that by the time he even thought of reporting, he'd already be declared dead. That's just how efficient their system was. With a sly smile, he calmly told Seonwoo that the choice was his to participate or not. Then he asked, would Seonwoo like to sign now or take a few days to think about it? Most people, he said, took some time. But now there was no hesitation left in Seonwoo's eyes. He firmly said he didn't need even a day. He had already made up his mind. All he wanted was for Kim to keep his promise. Kim's smile deepened, the kind of smile that screamed confidence, like he had already won. Just then, Seonwoo felt a sharp sting on his neck. A nurse had snuck up behind him and injected something into him. Shocked, he tried to struggle and asked what they were doing. Kim looked into his eyes and calmly told him to relax. It was just anesthesia, meant to take him to the arena. He reminded Seonwoo that his parents' safety, the surgery, and everything else would only remain secured as long as he kept fighting in the tournament. So, he'd better win and solve all his problems just like that. Seonwoo blacked out. A few minutes later, he slowly started regaining consciousness. His mind was blank. For a moment, he genuinely thought he might have died. Nothing around him made sense: the place, the people, or even the bed he was being wheeled on. Mustering some courage, he asked, "Where am I?" The man pushing his bed replied in a cold tone to stay quiet, he'd find out soon enough. A chill ran down Seonwoo's spine. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Vice Chief Yanwoo of the Hosen Group was sitting in his office. From here on, we'll call him Vice Chief Yanwoo. Kim had arrived and was telling him about Seonwoo. Yanwoo, clearly skeptical, asked if he was serious using a high school student as their representative fighter, even if the kid had defeated Black Bear. This sounded ridiculous. Kim calmly adjusted his glasses and replied, "Of course, Vice President, it might sound laughable, but that's exactly the point. The more ridiculous it seems, the better." He explained that if they wanted to bait the Vice President, who was obsessed with the fighting ward, they had to let him underestimate their side. Yanwoo seemed intrigued. Was Kim really saying that just one boy could defeat their boss? Kim nodded and told him they had already examined Seonwoo's body. After surviving Black Bear's bone-crushing technique, the fact that he was still standing was nothing short of a miracle. Back inside the fighting ward, Seonwoo's eyes slowly opened. His vision was blurry, and his mind was foggy with confusion. He had no clue where he was or who the guy was who was about to step on him. But before anything could happen, a sharp command echoed, "Step back or we'll shoot." The guy backed off just in time. Seonwoo was still lying on the ground, surrounded by buzzing drones. One drone flew close and announced, "Participant's consciousness confirmed." Seonwoo blinked in confusion. Why was he wearing a school uniform? He was sure he hadn't put it on himself. Suddenly, an announcement blared across the arena. The first round match was about to begin. The mechanical voice of the drone echoed, "Welcome to the doping test round." Every fighter's heartbeat quickened. This round would decide which 200 participants would move forward into the main battle arena. Now everything depended on a single injection. For some, it was a blessing of power; for others, a straight-up death sentence. Then came the announcement, "Let the selection begin." Each participant was given a random doping injection, designed to enhance one specific physical trait. Meanwhile, the VIPs watching the tournament's broadcast were told they could start placing their bets. Each fighter had their own doping set. The boy standing in front picked up the injection gun with excitement and jabbed it into himself without hesitation. Seonwoo quietly told himself that he had already broken the promise he once made to his parents that he'd never fight and just graduate school peacefully. But there was one vow he still hadn't broken: no drugs. Unfortunately, reality didn't wait for his thoughts to settle. Right in front of him, the boy who had just injected himself began coughing up blood. His body trembled and then, shockingly, started transforming. Seonwoo's eyes widened. What the hell was this? Just seconds ago, that boy had looked like a skinny stick, and now bam, he had a full muscular makeover. Suddenly, the boy leapt towards Seonwoo with the speed of a fired bullet, aiming straight for his face. Instinctively, Seonwoo ducked, and the boy crashed into the wall behind him. The wall shattered, chunks flying off like someone had thrown a grenade at it. Seonwoo, still catching up with what just happened, was thinking, where the hell did all those muscles come from? He was noodle thin a second ago. A nearby drone announced that the fighter had successfully enhanced his strength attribute. The boy burst out laughing, thrilled at his transformation like he'd just won a lottery. He even joked that if he could step outside right now, he'd love to smash everyone who used to call him a scrawny loser. Then, with a smug grin, he stepped forward and instantly appeared in front of Seonwoo. He began wondering aloud how to kill this tiny bug in the most fun way possible. But before he could act, Seonwoo landed a surprise punch on his face. The boy hadn't even reacted yet and was already forced back. That small punch made him furious. He thought Seonwoo was insulting him, just like his so-called friends used to. But Seonwoo wasn't listening to his rambling. He was observing. That punch wasn't for damage, it was to test the guy's reflexes. Seonwoo figured the boy hadn't enhanced his reaction speed. If I slowly close the distance and wait for an opening, I might just have a shot, he thought. But before Seonwoo could even try that, the boy charged at full speed and headbutted him. Right then, Seonwoo realized this monster wasn't someone he could face head-on. He thought maybe if he could aim for the face mid-air, he might get lucky. He tried to balance himself, but the boy smashed him with a strong punch that made Seonwoo bleed. Before Seonwoo could even recover, the boy grabbed his legs, screamed with excitement, and slammed him into the ground like a wrestling maniac. The boy laughed and said he didn't need to analyze Seonwoo's movements. He believed raw brute strength was enough to win. At that point, Seonwoo was completely helpless. The kind of injuries he was taking could have easily pushed anyone to the edge of death. But what the boy didn't know was that Seonwoo had something special: bone power. Still laughing with excitement, the boy shouted that crushing Seonwoo felt amazing. He wanted to test how far a human body could be crushed. Then, he jumped high into the air and yelled midair for everyone to come watch the same people who used to humiliate him, because now, he was the king. He landed with a loud thud, directly onto Seonwoo's chest, grinning creepily. He claimed the best part of crushing someone was hearing their ribs snap. Meanwhile, a few hours earlier at Yanwoo's office, Kim had revealed something shocking. After Seonwoo survived Black Bear's infamous bone-crushing attack, doctors examined his body and found something unbelievable. His bone density was 10 times higher than a normal human. His bones weren't even human level anymore, which meant that normal attacks barely affected him. Back to the fight just when the boy was about to stomp Seonwoo again. Seonwoo grabbed his leg and skillfully freed himself from the hold. The boy tried to grab Seonwoo's leg in return, but Seonwoo quickly switched his leg's position and distanced himself. The boy was stunned. How was Seonwoo surviving all this without any doping? Still not given up, the boy figured maybe his body hadn't fully absorbed the doping effects yet. But Seonwoo noticed something: the monster seemed slower now, and his stamina hadn't increased either. That gave Seonwoo a new idea. He figured he could keep targeting the face and avoid direct clashes. But to do that, he had to focus on speed instead of power. As Seonwoo advanced, the boy grinned, thinking Seonwoo was walking into his trap. He raised his hand for a deadly strike, but Seonwoo smoothly dodged it and landed a sharp left jab on his face. The boy instantly tried to counter with a left hook, but Seonwoo dodged again and followed up with a lightning-fast right jab. The boy lost his balance for a moment. Seonwoo didn't let him recover. He kept hitting him with rapid jabs, one after the other, like a human machine gun. The boy started staggering, almost fainting. Seonwoo saw his golden chance and decided it was time to end the fight with a heavy blow. But just when Seonwoo tried to deliver the final strike, the boy suddenly grabbed his arms and smiled strangely. He told Seonwoo he had finally caught him, and revealed that he'd been pretending to take hits on purpose. But Seonwoo stayed calm and asked if the boy really thought he had been caught just like that. Then, with a smirk, Seonwoo asked if the boy knew why kangaroos grab their opponent's arms before a powerful kick. Before the boy could respond, Seonwoo performed a crazy acrobatic move and slammed his leg straight into the boy's face. The boy crashed to the ground hard. Completely disoriented, the boy couldn't even figure out what had just happened. His body wouldn't respond. Furious, he shouted, "Damn it, why is my body acting like this?" He was losing to a guy who hadn't even doped. The boy glanced up at the doping gun and decided he needed another dose. Maybe the first one wasn't enough. But Seonwoo noticed what he was planning and instantly realized he had to stop him. That second shot wasn't just any dose, it was originally meant for Seonwoo. Unfortunately, before Seonwoo could reach him, the boy had already injected himself again. A drone immediately announced stamina doping successfully applied. And just like that, the boy launched into the air and tackled Seonwoo mid-air with a brutal spear move. Seonwoo started coughing up blood from the impact. But it didn't stop there. While still in the air, the boy grabbed Seonwoo again and slammed him straight into the ground with full force. A drone flew in to check whether Seonwoo was even alive, but the boy shoved it aside. For him, the fight wasn't over yet. He grabbed Seonwoo's neck and muttered something he'd always wanted to do to stop the breath of someone weak like a pest, just to feel the thrill. Just when Seonwoo was about to give up, the unexpected happened. The boy suddenly collapsed and dropped dead on the ground. The drone's voice cut through the silence. Game over due to player death. Yanwoo, watching everything unfold, sat there completely confused. How had that even happened? Kim calmly explained that the boy had died due to an overdose. Adjusting his glasses, Kim added that combining two different dopings had less than a 0.5 survival rate. The boy had already taken power doping and then added stamina doping on top of that. It was bound to happen. Yanwoo nodded, saying, "Well, I have to admit you're lucky. Your opponent died on his own." But Kim replied that luck wasn't the only reason. Seonwoo's body was unusually strange. Yanwoo waved that off, joking that Seonwoo wasn't strange, he just didn't break easily. "You know there are even bigger monsters out here," he warned. But Kim wasn't joking. He said Seonwoo was different. Doping could enhance muscles, organs, even hormones, but not bones. And there was something special hidden in Seonwoo's bones. That's why he was unique. Yanwoo grinned and said, "Alright, let's see how special he really is when I enter the round." Then he asked Kim what the next step was. Kim, adjusting his glasses again, replied that Seonwoo had successfully passed the doping test round. Now he would receive urgent treatment, and after that, he'd be moved into the zone with the surviving fighters, each of whom had developed different powers. A little later, in the treatment room inside the fighting ward, Seonwoo sat quietly, a worried look on his face. He murmured to himself that the boy had died because of him, but soon, he shook off that weak thought. He reminded himself he was about to die too, and his intention was only to knock the guy out. Now he had to do everything it took. Only he could protect his mom and dad. Just then, a drone floated in and announced all players who passed the round moved to the dead lobby. An attendant walked over and told Seonwoo that a guide would now explain everything to him. As long as he followed the guide, he'd be fine, but no dumb moves, because all guides were armed with lethal weapons. At that moment, the drone assigned as his guide hovered toward him. As Seonwoo followed the guide toward the lobby, his mind raced with uneasy thoughts. What is this place, he wondered. It looked like some underground cave or maybe a secret facility. Whoever built it had clearly eliminated every single option for escape. If only I could talk to mom one more time, he thought. But he reminded himself he had no choice, he had to survive. At the very least, they'd promised that as long as he participated, his parents would be kept safe. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that this whole setup was nothing like the outside world. Out there, people thought of him as some kind of monster. But in here, even the street punks looked like final bosses. Eventually, the guide stopped and said, "Player lobby has arrived." The door slid open and Seonwoo walked in. A voice announcement followed, "All players have entered the lobby. The game will now start with 124 participants. Please gather in front of the monitor for briefing." Looking around, Seonwoo muttered to himself, "What kind of monsters are these? They look even more dangerous than the ones from the first round." He decided to keep a low profile until the official matches began. But of course, trouble had other plans. A guy came up to him and asked how a high school kid like him even made it this far and suggested they play a little. Seonwoo sighed, thinking, damn, this school uniform is making me an easy target. I hope the briefing starts soon. Two more oddballs nearby, one who looked like a clown and the other like a crab, were laughing. The clown said he'd heard the high schooler only qualified because his opponent overdosed. The crab guy added, "Wait, that means he hasn't even used any doping yet." The clown chuckled and said that bringing him in with a school uniform probably meant the rich folks watching just wanted a pathetic show. Crab guy grinned, saying they should have a little fun with him. But then, something unexpected happened. The clown suddenly panicked and whispered, "Heads down. Someone else already has their eyes on him." Right then, a voice called out from behind Seonwoo. "When someone asks if you want to play," the voice said, placing a hand on Seonwoo's head, "you should answer or I'll kill you." Seonwoo clenched his jaw. If I want to survive with these maniacs, I'll have to become even crazier than them, he thought. He was just about to swing around and attack the guy when boom, surprise. Someone stepped in between them. A new guy blocked the big one from touching Seonwoo. The big guy looked irritated and grabbed the newcomer's hand tightly, but the newcomer didn't even flinch. Calmly he said, "Let the student go." He's just a kid. Then, with surprising force, he pulled his hand free from the big guy's grip. The big guy scoffed. You think a guy with only one doped arm can stop me, and for this weak little kid Seonwoo, holding back his own anger, decided it was better to ignore the situation. Getting unnecessary injuries was just plain stupid. But the big guy wasn't done. He decided right there to kill the one who had interfered. Seonwoo wasn't the kind of person who could just stand by and watch someone get bullied, but the biggest shock came next. A loud bang echoed through the lobby. A gunshot had been fired. The big guy collapsed on the spot. A drone hovered overhead and announced briefing will now begin. Anyone who harms another outside the designated schedule will be executed immediately. Seonwoo was getting more anxious by the minute. He wondered if these people really had no problem killing without warning. Was survival even possible in a place like this? Just then, a masked man appeared on the screen and energetically addressed the crowd. He announced that for those who passed the doping test, the last round was just a survival test. There had been no eliminations yet, but from now on, every round would eliminate the losers. And eliminate here didn't mean going home with a pat on the back, it meant being deemed incapable of further combat permanently. Then came the real hook. The grand prize was a whopping 10 billion won. Seonwoo's eyes widened. If he could win that, maybe his family could finally live like actual human beings. He made up his mind no matter what it took, he would go for it. But before he could get too excited, the masked man added a twist. Only one person could claim the grand prize. That was a bit of a buzzkill. Still, he told the crowd not to be disappointed. If they made it to the top 16 and survived, they'd receive 5 of the total amount VIPs had bet on them. Now the whole crowd was fired up. Even the weaklings started fantasizing about winning both the prize money and the betting payouts. The players were told that each of them would have their own broadcast channel and a personal guide who'd double as their cameraman. VPs would watch these channels and bet on whoever looked promising. The more attention they got, the more money they could earn. Afterward, the players were informed they'd each get a room to stay in until the game ended. They were allowed to freely choose their roommates. If they had questions, the guides would assist them. Nearby, Clown Guy whispered to Crab Guy that to get the VIP's attention, they'd need to stick with strong people and make some big flashy moves. Crab Guy snorted that if he shared a room with a high schooler like that kid, he wouldn't earn a single coin. Meanwhile, Seonwoo was stressing out about how even finding a room felt like a battle. Just then, the same guy who had saved him earlier stepped in and reassured him not to worry, he'd make sure Seonwoo was safe before the official match began. Seonwoo didn't say much but noticed the guy's hand still trembling from the grip of that huge man earlier. Just then, someone walked by, catching Seonwoo's attention. He had a vague feeling he'd seen this person before, maybe he was famous. The man casually mentioned there was a room that seemed to have no competition and suggested they check it out. Seonwoo felt a bit suspicious. This guy got injured because of him and now wanted to be roommates when everyone else was avoiding him. But after a moment of thought, he figured danger was everywhere no matter where he went, so he decided to go with him. Clown Guy spotted them and commented that they looked like a total disaster duo. Crab Guy confidently predicted their viewer count would be the lowest. Clown Guy smirked and said that's why he had chosen the room right next to the most popular group. He didn't want to be in the same room. It was too risky, but staying next door would still give him screen time. Crab Guy nodded. If muscleheads attracted VIPs, being near them could also pay off. Across the hall, 3 bulky guys with scary vibes were chilling in a room. Suddenly, a blonde guy walked in, shut the door behind him, strolled up to them, and casually said the spot they were sitting in looked pretty good to him, and politely asked them to scoot over a little. One of the big muscle guys stepped forward and scoffed that the camera wasn't even on, and the blonde kid had dared to shut the door. He must have walked in with a death wish. He lunged at the blonde with a powerful left arm swing, but the blonde didn't flinch. With just 2 fingers, he struck the big guy at the weakest spot on his neck. Bang, the guy dropped instantly, neck twisted awkwardly like a broken joystick. The remaining 2 muscle men froze, mouths half open in shock. The blonde casually asked if anyone else wanted to greet him. Dead silence. No one dared speak. He nodded and said staying quiet was a wise choice anyway, because the person he truly wanted to greet wasn't them. That mysterious blonde fighter's name was Han Menu, age 19. For convenience, let's call him MSU from now on. A few hours later, on a bridge inside a sleek black car, Kim updated Yanwoo. The first vice president was apparently planning to team up again with Troy Ma-chun, the reigning champion from the previous tournament. Yanwoo growled in frustration. Of course the VP would use Troy, no one could beat him. Unlike Yanwoo, whose only backup option was a high school kid. Kim, always calm like a cucumber in winter, replied that if Seonwoo could reach the top 16, he'd qualify for a second round of doping. Given that his body was already 10 times stronger than a normal person, the second dose could turn him into a record-breaking monster. Still, Yanwoo looked worried. How were they supposed to keep Seonwoo on their side while other VIPs would definitely try to snatch him? But Kim smirked and said not to worry. During the doping test round, Seonwoo's group had the lowest viewership of all 5-person rooms. Translation: no one was paying attention to them yet. Back in the fighter's ward, Seonwoo entered his new room alongside the guy who had saved him. That guy sounded a bit nervous, saying gaining viewership wouldn't be easy here since the audience preferred fighters who actually had a shot at winning. The room already had a few people inside. First was Amanda Grok, age 23, a capoeira and jiu-jitsu fighter. Next was Kim Minho, the youngest in the competition at 25, a boxer. And the last was Mainan, age 28, who was, at that very moment, trying to lick his own elbow. The room was surrounded by cameras. The guy whispered to Seonwoo that it looked like the guides had started filming already. They'd need to attract VIP attention fast if they wanted to earn betting money. He planted one hand on the ground and flipped himself upside down like a gymnast, showing off some acrobatic flair. Seonwoo wasn't very impressed, it just looked like a fancy warm-up. Then Amanda stepped up. She casually placed a single finger on the floor, lifted her entire body off the ground, and held the pose like it was no big deal. Seonwoo's jaw almost hit the floor. Who does a full body lift with just one finger and no momentum? Amanda and the guy soon turned it into a mini competition who could move faster while showing off. Meanwhile, Minho, the young boxer, muttered that showing off strength was for idiots. Then he started sprinting back and forth at full speed like someone trying to avoid chores at home. On the other side of the room, Minho finally managed to touch his elbow with his tongue. Mission accomplished. Meanwhile, everyone else was busy showing off their skills in hopes of catching the audience's attention. Seonwoo just stood there, watching all the chaos and circus-like stunts. It looked amazing, sure, but he couldn't help feeling like the odd one out. This was starting to feel less like a tournament and more like a talent show gone wild. Then suddenly, a loud announcement flashed on the screen. The 124-player tournament bracket was officially complete. Everyone froze and turned to look at the screen. The real shock came when they saw who they'd be facing in the first match. Seonwoo's opponent was someone named Kai. The scene then shifted to the Hojin group headquarters, where Yanwoo looked at Kim and asked if this Kai guy was really that dangerous. Kim nodded and explained that Kai had never lost a single fight in his entire Lethwei fighting career. Yanwoo blinked, confused. Kim went on to clarify it's a Burmese martial art, kind of like Muay Thai, but much more brutal. Unlike other combat sports, it didn't use gloves, and even headbutts were allowed. Yes, you could literally smash your forehead into your opponent's face. Sounds painful, that's because it is. That's also why it's banned in many competitions. But the real kicker in Lethwei, attacks to the back of the head and the spine were perfectly legal moves that were strictly forbidden in other martial arts. That meant Kai had more real combat experience than anyone else in the tournament. Even after ending his professional career, Kai didn't stop fighting. He started taking on infamous street fighters instead. Eventually, an organization recruited him after watching his chaos-filled victory streak. Yanwoo, now visibly worried, asked if Seonwoo could actually hold his ground against someone like that. Kim gave a thoughtful look and said he wasn't sure either. So far, Seonwoo had only fought debt collectors and that black bear guy, neither of whom had any proper martial arts training. It was like comparing backyard wrestling with a UFC match. The scene then shifted back to the 5-person room in the fighting ward. Seonwoo slowly sat up from his box bed, feeling surprisingly relieved. He rubbed his eyes and wondered how long he had been asleep. But soon, he noticed something strange. His body felt lighter. And it wasn't just a woke up from a nap kind of lightness. It was that same strange feeling he had right after his fight with Black Bear, like his body had suddenly leveled up. The guy who had saved him also got up and, seeing the look on Seonwoo's face, casually said not to be surprised. He explained that when muscles are pushed to their limit and recover without permanent damage, they naturally become stronger. Then he added with a smirk that it looked like Seonwoo had never pushed himself that hard before. Seonwoo, with a shocked expression, started piecing things together. During the fight with Black Bear, he had pushed himself to the edge without even realizing it. That's probably why he felt so different now. The man added that it wasn't just about muscles. Seonwoo's recovery speed also seemed abnormal. It almost looked like he'd been exposed to some kind of recovery-based doping. Seonwoo had been holding back a question since last night, but now he finally asked the man why he had risked his life to save him. Why go that far? Why get himself injured? The man gave a tired, pale smile and said that Seonwoo reminded him of his son. He confessed with guilt in his eyes that if he had been a better father, maybe his son wouldn't have fallen into debt with loan sharks. He was here now only to pay off that debt. But when he saw Seonwoo all alone, it reminded him too much of the son he had neglected and ruined. So he just couldn't stand by and watch. Seonwoo looked at him seriously and told him not to waste his time on him. He told the man to stay alive and take care of his real son. If he died, then all of this would be meaningless. The man was moved by his words but insisted that he didn't care, he would always help him. Right then, their deep and heartfelt conversation was rudely interrupted by Menon, who shouted angrily, claiming he could touch his elbow with his tongue. And yet, somehow, he wasn't in the main arena. It was tragic, really. The man turned to Seonwoo and explained that fighters with the most viewer attention usually got placed in the main arena. Everyone else ended up fighting in the doping arena. But here came the twist. Being in the main arena meant facing the most popular monsters in the tournament. Seonwoo saw this as the perfect opportunity. It would draw all the VIPs' attention to their room at once. The man looked at him like he'd lost his mind. Just then, Menon popped up right in front of Seonwoo with a creepy expression. Seonwoo nearly jumped out of his skin. Menon warned him that the main arena wasn't just about entertaining the viewers. It was where people like the Solar Wives personally showed up, the ones who held the real power in the world. Meanwhile, far away, night had fallen. In the middle of a jungle, 3 cars were parked outside a small house, their headlights still glowing. Inside, Kim and Yanwoo stood quietly by a fire. Yanwoo looked around and grumbled that he thought he was going to an arena, not this shady-looking place. Kim calmly explained that the exact location of the fighting ward was a secret, known only to the organizers. That's probably why they were summoned to such a hidden spot. Then, both of them suddenly sensed that someone else had connected to Seonwoo's channel besides them. Yanwoo was confused. Was someone spying on them? At that exact moment, a voice echoed from the rooftop. A girl called out, saying it seemed like there was a bit of a misunderstanding. She introduced herself casually. It was Shangyin, 19 years old, the youngest daughter of the Hojin group. She waved off their suspicions, saying she wasn't stalking them or anything. She was just interested in Seonwoo. Yanwoo was boiling with anger. He snapped that just a few days ago, he was kicked out of the company, and now they were following him around like rats. Kim, always calm, tried to lighten the tension a bit and remarked that it seemed the young lady had taken a special interest in their boss. He added that she probably had some ulterior motives too. Yanwoo didn't look convinced. In a sharp tone, he warned the girl that if she was planning something, she better leave quietly, because whatever she was thinking, it wasn't gonna work. But before the tension could thicken anymore, a drone and a car arrived and stopped right in front of them. Both had come to pick them up and guide them directly to the fighting ward's main arena. The drone announced that it would escort everyone to the arena, clearly signaling that the next phase of whatever was happening was about to begin. Later, after some time, a mysterious voice told the girl to remove the blindfold from her eyes. As she did, her vision cleared to reveal a large, luxurious room connected to a massive glass window. At first, she didn't understand what everyone was doing there until she looked out the window. There it was, the main arena, with fighters locked in battle. A muscular bodyguard approached her and explained that what she was seeing below was the main arena, and the owner of the arena was sitting in one of the 16 VIP rooms. The girl smiled slightly, realizing they had finally entered her brother's playground. Kim was there too, and he informed everyone that the moment the current match ended, Seonwoo would be entering the competition. His fight would begin immediately after. At that very moment, a small boy down in the arena defeated an opponent nearly 10 times his size. Kim watched in disbelief and muttered that the kid was a monster. He quickly informed the manager that the boy was Hansu, a fighter the same age as Seonwoo. The manager was shocked another high school student was in the arena. Kim pulled out his tablet and checked. Technically, Hansu wasn't a student anymore, he had dropped out. But interestingly, he had left the same school that Seonwoo had also quit. That coincidence felt a little strange. Suddenly, a guiding drone hovered over Hansu and another fighter, announcing that the match between Room 9 and Room 20 had ended with Hammond's victory. Up next was the match between Room 10 and Room 28. With that announcement, fighters from all rooms began stepping out. As Seonwoo and the old man walked out into the arena, they immediately felt the pressure. It was even more intense than the previous round. The first match was Minho's, and the remaining 10 fighters waited patiently for their turn. Anyone who finished their match had to exit the stage immediately, no questions asked. The old man knew Minho wasn't someone who panicked easily. But then, something strange happened. A fast-moving object seemed to shoot towards Seonwoo like a missile. His heart skipped a beat. Turned out, it was just a rock, but it was flying way too fast for comfort. Minho wasn't just any normal kid. He instantly figured out that the rock had been thrown by Hammond. The speed and angle made it obvious to someone like him. Most people wouldn't have even noticed it, but Minho wasn't most people. As Hammond casually strolled by, he asked Minho if all the high schoolers on his team were agents. Minho looked a bit puzzled and replied that he wasn't really sure about their nature. But Hammond's mood flipped in an instant. His tone turned sharp, and he declared that what Minho was saying was absolutely impossible. The sudden shift in Hammond's aura, especially that murderous intent, triggered Minho's instincts, and he immediately took a defensive stance. Seonwoo and the old man, however, were completely confused. Why was Minho acting like this? Thankfully, Amanda stepped in to explain. She told the old man that Minho's senses were insanely sharp, so sharp that he could detect even the slightest malicious intent from an opponent. That explained why Minho suddenly reacted like he was under attack. Minho was still shaken. When he opened his eyes, Hammond was already walking away. Something didn't sit right. His senses had been so overwhelmed, it felt like he had really been about to get attacked. He was almost sure Hammond had intended to strike him, but pulled back at the very last second. Before anyone else could catch on, Minho's real opponent called him to the ring. The scene then cut to a luxurious hotel room, where the president of a major company was watching the fight. He asked his butler about Minho's opponent. The butler informed him that the boy's name was Peace. No matter how skilled Minho's attacks were, Peace was a solid wrestler. If he found his rhythm, he could crush his opponent in seconds. The butler added that wrestlers had historically dominated the top positions in mixed martial arts, because wrestling was the strongest foundation. Even when someone attacked with just fists, a wrestler could grab and neutralize them with ease. The hardest kind of opponent wasn't the one who threw punches, but the one who attacked with their entire body weight. So, if a wrestler was good, he had nothing to fear. Minho was now being compared to Peace on a physical level. As Minho got into a boxing stance, Peace laughed and mocked him, thinking he was just some rookie who'd never fought without gloves. Honestly, it was bad luck for Minho to face someone like Peace as his first opponent. But before Peace could let out another chuckle, Minho launched a punch with such insane speed that it landed right in Peace's eye, so hard that the damage might leave him blind in that eye permanently. Peace screamed in pain. Minho, meanwhile, was calm, almost chillingly so. Just one hit, and Peace was already struggling. His concentration was gone. He couldn't even follow Minho's movements properly anymore. With only one eye functioning, it was like fighting in the dark. To make things worse, Minho kept targeting the same side again and again, the side with the injured eye. Minho was so small and ridiculously fast now that tracking him had become nearly impossible for the big guy named Peace. Suddenly, Minho landed a sharp left uppercut on him, followed by a powerful right straight punch to the face. The blow was so intense it almost damaged Peace's skull. Still, he neither stopped nor stumbled. Minho kept attacking from every possible angle, and each strike was so intense it caused serious damage. One of Peace's eyes was also getting messed up from the continuous hits. Meanwhile, Peace was completely unable to keep track of Minho's movements. The old man watching from the sidelines was shocked, seeing how Minho had nearly defeated his opponent with just a few punches. But Amanda quickly pointed out that Peace had started grabbing Minho's fists, trying to stop him. Then the scene shifted to the stage. Peace almost attacked Minho, but Minho quickly jumped back to create distance. He was confused about why he suddenly felt in danger, even though he had been dominating just a second ago. Peace himself seemed surprised, not knowing how he had managed to block those attacks. That's when he remembered. When his damaged eye started seeing clearly for a moment, his instincts kicked in hard. The intensity of that savage fight had triggered every alert in his body. It seriously felt like Peace had entered the second phase of a boss fight. He even closed his eyes, and surprisingly, Minho also couldn't figure out what was happening. But he knew one thing for sure: he couldn't let his guard down yet, because the odds weren't in his favor anymore. Peace, with his eyes shut, blocked Minho's next punch. Back in the president's room, every member watching the live scene was stunned. Then Minho suddenly felt a strong sense of danger. His gut told him that if he didn't dodge left right now, he was absolutely gonna die. Somehow, he narrowly dodged Peace's next attack and thought he had escaped. But then, out of nowhere, a joint-handed strike slammed him into the ground. Before he could even hit the floor, Peace grabbed him mid-air and slammed him again with a reverse body slam. The old man was speechless at the sudden turnaround, while the president was oddly pleased even though he couldn't understand how Peace became even more powerful after losing an eye. That's when the butler explained that it might be because of the injection when Peace lost his vision. The rest of his senses got supercharged. The scene flashed back slightly. Minho was being absolutely crushed now, while Peace smiled like the devil himself. He even thanked Minho for damaging his eye, because that's what helped him fully awaken his new powers. But suddenly, Minho threw another punch. He clearly wasn't ready to give up. The hit was so strong, Peace flew several meters away. That's when everyone realized Minho had popped Peace's other eye too. Just like a balloon, the president went into full panic mode, thinking all his money had gone down the drain. Meanwhile, the old man thought maybe Minho was still doing fine, even after all those attacks, though honestly, he had no idea what was happening. He was just happy the tables had turned. Then the butler calmly told the president that when Minho landed that final punch, he was actually unconscious. This news shook the president to his core. He had seen Minho raise his fist and declare victory, but now it seemed he'd done it while basically knocked out. Amanda, however, wasn't celebrating yet. She knew Minho had to wake up fast, before Peace could use his enhanced senses to hunt him down even without his eyes. Now we see that Peace had woken up, but Minho was still unconscious. Peace couldn't see anything at all with either eye, but strangely, this didn't turn into a weakness, it became an advantage. His senses were evolving with every passing second. He could smell the floor, detect dirt particles in his opponent's breath, and even sense tiny changes in air pressure against his skin. It was like he could see behind his back without turning his head. At first, Peace had thought the injection he took wasn't very effective, since it didn't seem like some flashy power drug. But now he realized that it was absolutely insane. His new abilities were growing stronger every second. Peace started laughing like a maniac, while everyone around just stared at him in shock. Eventually, he decided that since Minho was the reason he gained this new strength, he would let him rest peacefully, and then immediately jumped into a full-blown attack. Meanwhile, Minho was still unconscious. His body wasn't listening to Peace's dramatic speech, but then, something sparked inside him. He remembered his innocent brother's death. Right at that moment, a flashback hit him, how he had been dragged into the underground fight arena while searching for weapons. The memory was so intense, Minho's eyes snapped open. His body was back under his control. The moment he opened his eyes, he saw Peace about to elbow him in the face, but something felt weird. Peace looked like he was moving at turtle speed. Then it hit Minho. Peace hadn't gotten slower, he himself had gotten much faster. Peace's elbow smashed into the ground with such force that the floor cracked. But Minho was no longer there. Even the old man was stunned, wondering what just happened. Peace turned and saw Minho, who casually thanked him for awakening his enhanced senses. After a short break, Minho had recovered a good amount of strength. Peace now finally understood this little guy was no joke. Minho had become even faster than before. He took his stance again and teased Peace, daring him to follow. Then, going back to basics, he made the first move. Peace immediately sensed that a big attack was coming. The fight restarted, and somehow, Peace managed to block Minho's punch at the exact right moment. But Minho remained confident. He figured blocking one punch might have been a fluke, but there was no way the second punch would miss. Yet, to his surprise, the next attack failed too. That's when it hit him. He needed to take things up a notch. Peace's senses were now insanely sharp. Minho couldn't land a single clean strike, and he couldn't understand how such a bulky guy was keeping up with his speed. But Peace, in his mind, already knew the answer. He could feel even the faintest beat of Minho's heart. There was no blind spot around him anymore. Even Minho realized that fighting at normal speed wasn't going to work against this opponent. He had no choice left. It was risky, but if he didn't push to his maximum speed, he'd lose for sure. With no other option, Minho began charging like a sports car in overdrive, preparing to land his special move, the straight light punch. But just as he went for it, Peace reacted instantly. He caught Minho mid-punch and slammed him into the ground with brutal force. The impact was so harsh, Minho's neck twisted unnaturally. For a second, it looked like it had broken. Peace calmly asked him why he had fallen, even after all that powering up. Minho quickly stood back up, thinking his neck was definitely broken, but weirdly, it wasn't. It was perfectly fine. Peace just smiled and said that if Minho hadn't gone down from that slam, he would have started breaking each of his bones one by one. How comforting. Meanwhile, the old man got up. He had finally realized that Minho's speed was no longer working. Still, he wasn't worried. He saw that Minho was learning. They were all analyzing the situation. If speed alone couldn't win this fight, then the question was what kind of move could. Then, they saw something unbelievable. Minho stood up again. And this happened even after his stamina doping had completely worn off. Still, he was somehow managing to keep up his speed, and the old man watching was genuinely shocked. But the surprises didn't end there. Minho's punch suddenly landed perfectly, hitting Peace right in the face with a strong blow. The old man was stunned, not just by the attack, but by what was coming next. Minho was now dodging the big guy's moves like a maniac, circling him at lightning speed. The old man couldn't understand how Minho was still moving so fast without any remaining doping effects. Then, Minho struck again, a second consecutive punch, landing square on Peace's face. And yet the old man remained confused. Why was Minho wasting energy on fake moves when his real attacks were clearly working well? That's when Amanda spoke up again. She explained that the fake moves were actually the key to Minho's success. Minho had stopped using them earlier when he assumed his opponent had lost visual clarity. But that's where things started to go wrong. Peace's senses had actually heightened instead. The old man only understood about half of Amanda's explanation. situation, but Amanda wasn't done. She continued explaining that Minho was now outsmarting Peace and his enhanced senses. If an attack came from a single direction, Peace could easily read and react to it. But when multiple fake and real attacks came at once, it became difficult to block, especially for someone who didn't have enough experience with those new senses. Minho was basically turning the battlefield into a confusing mess, just for Peace. Even while explaining all this, Amanda was stunned by a new realization: Minho was far more dangerous than she had initially thought. Meanwhile, the assistant pointed at Peace's confident expression, as if saying that Peace still wasn't giving up. But just then, Minho got caught and was slammed hard into the ground. Everyone was shocked until the very next second. Minho vanished like dust and reappeared right in front of Peace, totally unharmed, staring directly into his eyes. Seonwoo stood frozen, shocked, as Peace suddenly collapsed like he had never even thrown a punch. Amanda then explained that the repeated strikes to Peace's head had shaken his brain enough to weaken his sensory perception even though it was enhanced. This confusion made Peace believe he had caught Minho when, in reality, he hadn't even touched him. Seonwoo, still stunned, wondered was Minho actually stronger than him too? Seonwoo couldn't help but feel a tinge of jealousy toward Minho's abilities, especially after seeing him fight with such sharp senses and precision, all without any doping. Then, a drone hovered overhead and made the official announcement Kim Minho was the winner. The old man burst into joyful celebration, while a VIP in the viewing room looked like he was ready to flip a table out of sheer frustration. Right after the match, Minho collapsed to the ground, completely exhausted. Meanwhile, in the VIP room, a girl quietly took mental notes. To her, this no longer felt like a human fight. Then it hit her maybe the old VIPs didn't go crazy for no reason. Her bodyguard explained that this wasn't just a battleground, it was a full-blown paradise for the elites. Here, they could indulge in power, money, and even off-the-grid pleasures, violence included with zero consequences. This fight, he said, wasn't just for entertainment. The VIPs had their pride on the line. The girl suddenly understood why the second-in-command seemed so obsessed with defeating the top dog. The guard went on to explain that the second director had chosen his fighter very carefully. Not only was the scout highly skilled, but he also had deep knowledge of the field. He assured her that the real strength would be revealed in the rounds to come. The scene shifted. Another character entered and informed the director that all 16 VIPs had now arrived. The director smiled and said he hoped this time they would witness a significant victory. A report then came in, stating that the sensory doping awakening had reached its second stage, and this time, the side effects were 20 lower. However, the regeneration effect they were hoping for still hadn't appeared. Despite that, the staff refused to accept that the doping had failed. According to them, the peak effects were just starting to show. For the first time, the doping had shown a new effect, something that might offer clues about regeneration. When the director asked when the skin enhancement effects would show up, the staff replied that it would happen in the next match, in the main arena, where Kai would be fighting. Meanwhile, Seonwoo was preparing for his own match. The old man, a bit concerned, advised him that if things got too dangerous, he should just give up. But Seonwoo calmly replied that he wouldn't back down. The old man was taken aback by his composure. There wasn't even a hint of fear or nervousness in the boy. Then, a drone announced that Kangwoo, also known as Kai, was entering the arena. Seonwoo watched him closely and thought back to his childhood. He had always faced danger with a fighting spirit. At first, he used to cry from fear. But over time, he'd grown numb to it, having survived several dangerous incidents without a single scratch. Turns out fear and he had grown apart a long time ago. The bullies who once tried to scare Seonwoo had started getting scared themselves, mostly because of his deadpan, emotionless reactions. These days, Seonwoo had only one real fear left: the safety of his family. But the moment he laid eyes on Kai, a cold feeling settled in his chest. He could instantly tell this opponent was on a whole different level. Meanwhile, manager Yanwoo asked Kim what kind of doping Kai was using. Kim explained that this was his first time witnessing a skin enhancement doping in action. According to him, it wasn't just useful, it was insanely dangerous. Kai's skin had become so hard and rough that even the slightest contact could tear through an opponent's skin and muscles. The guy was practically a walking weapon. Kim also noticed that a majority of the VIPs had placed their bets on Kai purely because of this terrifying skin enhancement. Manager Yanwoo looked puzzled and asked if they should still bet on Seonwoo. Kim, calm as ever, replied that so far every single bet was on Kai except for one. Someone had earlier placed a whopping 1 billion won on Seonwoo. That news left manager Yanwoo completely stunned. The scene shifted again. A guard asked Sunjian if she was really sure about her decision. Sunjian calmly responded that she trusted her intuition. In her words, the only way to beat veterans is with big risks for big rewards. The drone announced the start of the match. Seonwoo was filled with determination as he mentally prepared himself, but one thing kept bugging him: why hadn't Kai made a single move to get ready? So he asked him bluntly if he was going to fight or just keep talking. Kai casually replied that he was a warrior and he didn't hurt the weak. Then, without warning, he slowly stepped towards Seonwoo and said he'd only use 10 of his power for a single attack. And in the very next second, Kai launched a kick at such high speed that Seonwoo couldn't even react. The entire arena was stunned. Manager Yanwoo looked horrified after witnessing such a brutal move. He thought the match might have ended right then and there. The old man muttered that maybe Seonwoo should just give up now. But Minho noticed something strange. Seonwoo wasn't screaming in pain. That meant something was different. Seonwoo realized that Kai didn't actually want to hurt him, he just wanted to scare him. Minho then explained that Kai wasn't saving Seonwoo out of kindness. Instead, Kai was actually embarrassed. The idea of having to seriously fight a high schooler was messing with his ego. He was scared his reputation might get ruined. So he pretended like this match was nothing serious for him. Then Kai casually told Seonwoo that he should have just faked being unconscious instead of showing pain. But suddenly, Seonwoo broke the silence and asked Kai if he had any solid comeback, or if talking was his actual superpower. The whole arena went quiet, and Kai looked genuinely stunned. He realized he had underestimated Seonwoo way too much. match. Determined to take things seriously now, Kai launched another kick, this time at full speed. But to everyone's shock, Seonwoo blocked it with his leg. A stunned silence spread through the arena. Kai immediately followed up with a punch, but Seonwoo simply tilted his head and dodged it like it was nothing. Kai stood there, wide-eyed, baffled by Seonwoo's agility. When Kai tried to go for a head attack, Seonwoo not only avoided it, he countered with a direct punch to Kai's head. Manager Yanwoo was stunned, and the girl watching from the VIP section, her eyes sparkled with delight. Now, Seonwoo began teasing Kai. He said that someone who kneels in front of a high schooler doesn't deserve second chances. That hit Kai harder than any punch. Then Seonwoo added that he doesn't punch people who are already on their knees. That was it, Kai snapped. Furious, Kai shouted that if Seonwoo couldn't fake a loss, he'd have to be scared into surrendering. He grabbed Seonwoo's shoulder tightly and said he had no choice left now, he had to act. Seonwoo was completely shocked and couldn't even move. Then came a brutal headbutt, 50 of Kai's strength slamming right into Seonwoo's skull. Seonwoo felt intense pain shoot through his body, but at the same moment, Kai also seemed to feel something off, like he'd suddenly lost control over his power. Seonwoo tried to kick back, but Kai quickly dodged. Then Kai noticed something strange. Despite the headbutt, Seonwoo didn't seem visibly injured. However, Seonwoo's vision was beginning to blur, and he was clearly struggling. Kai attacked again, and even though Seonwoo managed to dodge, the force of the strike was so strong that it ripped his shirt. The old man gasped. A shirt tearing from such a light contact, that wasn't normal. But Minho, calm and composed, said the fight still wasn't over. Kai charged again, this time with full force, and landed a direct hit to Seonwoo's body using his knee. Without wasting a second, he prepared to follow up with an elbow strike. The old man yelled from the sidelines not to hit the back of the head, it could be fatal. He shouted that this had gone too far. Kai's powerful strike was so intense that the arena floor cracked where Seonwoo fell. The entire crowd went silent, holding their breath. Right in the center of the arena, Seonwoo lay motionless, while Kai stood over him, emotionless, as if the brutal attack meant nothing to him. The old man's heart sank. His face turned grim and his voice trembled as he muttered this was too much. He's just a high schooler. Maybe Seonwoo wouldn't survive this. Minho, who was standing nearby, calmly interrupted the old man and said, "Well, you're right about one thing." Without letting the old man finish his sentence, Minho continued and admitted that Kai was indeed a monster, just as everyone had heard. The old man looked at Minho, confused, trying to understand what he really meant. Meanwhile, inside the arena, Seonwoo still hadn't moved. His head was still buried in the shattered floor, and Kai was standing there, staring at him with a head full of thoughts. He couldn't stop thinking, what is wrong with this guy? Kai was feeling weird, something was off. Right before he attacked with his elbow, Seonwoo had slammed his own head into the ground. Like, seriously, did he want to hurt himself, or was he playing some weird mind game? Then, suddenly, a sharp but faint voice came from the ground. It was Seonwoo. He said he was just trying to avoid the attack. His voice was weak, but the words were clear. He explained that whether it was fear or fast thinking, at that moment, that was the best move he could come up with. Kai's eyes widened as he watched Seonwoo slowly get back up. This kid clearly wasn't ready to give up. Seonwoo added that even if his head was made of steel, a direct elbow hit from Kai would have caused real damage. Kai stood there in disbelief. How was this kid still standing? For a second, he wondered if Seonwoo was using some kind of performance drug. But then he remembered it wasn't Seonwoo who had overdosed. It was Seonwoo's previous opponent, who had died because of it. So then what was powering Seonwoo? Even the old man was stunned. He mumbled to himself, completely lost in the moment, not understanding how Seonwoo had stood up again. Even Minho, who was usually composed, raised an eyebrow. A faint look of surprise crossed his face, though he quickly covered it up, saying, "It's fine, don't worry about it." But inside, even Minho had started doubting things. Seonwoo was strong, no doubt, but something was definitely off. He kept getting up again and again like none of it mattered. By now, Seonwoo was fully back on his feet in the arena. He was breathing heavily, but there was fire in his eyes, determination. Kai stared at him shocked. He told the kid not to push himself too much. If Seonwoo just pretended to be unconscious, he'd accept it. No need to hurt himself any further. But Seonwoo took a deep breath, locked eyes with Kai, and with a sharp tone said, "You're still running your mouth." His tone was clear and full of defiance, like he was challenging Kai to shut up for just 1 second. Kai was honestly confused now. Had the impact scrambled this kid's brain, or was he just unbelievably stubborn? But one thing was obvious, this fight wasn't over yet, and Seonwoo wasn't backing down. Seonwoo took a steady breath and returned to his fighting stance. His eyes stayed locked on Kai as he gave a faint smirk and said, "Kai, I could do this all day." The line was full of confidence, and clearly, his spirit was still unbroken. Kai, keeping his cold and emotionless expression, responded bluntly. He told Seonwoo he could talk big all he wanted, but if he already knew he couldn't win, then what was the point of fighting? Why waste energy and time then? With a mocking gesture, Kai stretched both his arms out wide, exposing his chest, and said, "Let's make it interesting. Come at me with full force, I won't even defend myself." Seonwoo hesitated for a moment. Confusion flickered across his face, but then his eyes hardened with realization. So this was the truth. All this time, Kai had been ignoring him because he thought Seonwoo was weak. That was fine. But now Kai had gotten so overconfident that he was openly mocking him. Kai's face remained stone cold. He said he was the strongest and had gone through hell to prove it. He had fought in rings, won championship titles, but no one had ever truly satisfied his hunger for battle. So, he kept moving forward, kept looking for something more. He continued explaining that he had joined a gang where people killed for cash. Then, he entered an organization that wiped out opposition without a second thought. He had taken down every person who stood in in his way. He called himself the ultimate survivor, the strongest of all. Still, Seonwoo stood his ground. His spirit remained unshaken. He shot back quickly, telling Kai that maybe he thought he'd seen everything, but this was different. Now, the real fight was about to begin. Without saying another word, Seonwoo suddenly charged at Kai with full speed. His fist was clenched with everything he had. Kai, still smirking, stood with his arms wide open, refusing to defend. "Come on. It won't make a difference," he said mockingly. Seonwoo gathered all his strength and slammed a punch straight into Kai's gut. The impact was so intense, shockwaves spread across the arena. The ground itself trembled. The crowd was frozen in disbelief, staring at the scene, all with one question in their minds: why did Kai let himself get hit, and more importantly, how would this punch change the fight? But Kai remained exactly where he was. He didn't move an inch. It was as if the powerful punch hadn't affected him at all. His cold, expressionless face was still the same, calm and unreadable. Kai looked down at Seonwoo and scoffed, saying he had already told everyone this was pointless. According to him, there was no way a mere high schooler could hurt him. But then something strange happened. Kai's eyes flickered unexpectedly, and for a brief moment, confusion flashed across his face. It was like something inside him cracked, as if a glass shard shattered deep within. Seonwoo didn't waste a second. Spotting an opening, he launched a powerful punch straight to Kai's side. This time, Kai's previously stone-cold expression wavered slightly. He actually felt that hit. A shockwave of pain pulsed through his body, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. It rattled him from the inside out. Before Kai could even gather his thoughts, Seonwoo came in with a sharp side kick aimed right at his head. But this time, Kai didn't repeat his mistake. He blocked the kick easily, and his face twisted with anger. With a furious voice full of raw rage, he roared, "How dare you!" and threw a vicious punch that looked like it could split a rock in two. Seonwoo felt the terrifying power behind that punch and tried to dodge, but the speed was unreal. He couldn't escape in time. Even though it was just a light graze from Kai's elbow across his chest, the impact left a deep, bloody cut. Seonwoo winced from the pain but refused to let it show on his face. He stood his ground, silently enduring. The arena's atmosphere was electric now. Everyone was on edge. The tide of battle had shifted. Both fighters understood this was no longer a match, it was becoming a brutal, relentless war. Seonwoo's expression tightened. He realized he hadn't cleanly dodged Kai's last attack, so he quickly created some distance. A tense silence fell over the arena, almost unnatural. The two fighters stared each other down, neither making a move. Then the quiet was broken by Kai's cold voice. He told Seonwoo he wasn't bad and that he'd already had his chances. Did he have anything else to show? Seonwoo's voice was calm but confident. He said yes, with a slow smile creeping across his face, one that caught Kai slightly off guard. Then Seonwoo tugged at the fabric of his torn shirt and reminded Kai of something he'd said earlier. Without hesitation, he ripped his shirt open, revealing a body sculpted by pure hard work and struggle. The audience was stunned, especially the old man with glasses, who clearly never expected a high schooler to have a physique that looked like it had come straight out of an action movie. Probably rethinking all his life choices, at that point especially skipping gym day. The atmosphere in the arena shifted. Looking straight into Kai's eyes, Seonwoo said in a steady voice that he figured he wouldn't be getting any more free shots now. Kai's eyes narrowed as he admitted Seonwoo was strong, he'd give him that. But Kai added firmly that Seonwoo still had a long way to go before he could actually win. With that respectful yet warning tone, something suddenly changed. Without any notice, a bright blue glow burst around Kai's body. His power spiked to terrifying levels, almost like he'd flipped a final boss switch. He declared that he was now at 100. His form looked monstrous, and the aura surrounding him was so heavy that Seonwoo actually felt the pressure on his body. But even then, Seonwoo's confident smile didn't fade. His eyes remained steady. He was ready to face Kai at full strength. On the sidelines, the old man with glasses looked confused and muttered under his breath, wondering why Seonwoo was still smiling. Meanwhile, Amanda, who had been carefully observing the fight, softly said that now the real fun was about to begin. Her excitement was growing, and she could barely contain it. The old man shook his head in disbelief. To him, this looked like a total slaughter waiting to happen. Kai was unleashing everything. This was going to be a massacre. Amanda, however, stayed calm and reminded him that a fight isn't just about power. She explained that when your opponent finally recognizes you, especially someone like Kai, that's when the real fight begins. The old man frowned, clearly not convinced. He asked what good recognition was if you were still gonna lose. Amanda's voice softened. She explained that this was about more than just winning. She had felt it too, that moment when people who once underestimated you are suddenly forced to take you seriously. That moment, she said, is the real victory. Minho, standing nearby, quietly added that he understood what Amanda meant. People always doubted him because of his small size. But when you finally force them to look you in the eyes with fear, that's when you know all the hard work was worth it. For the first time, a small smile appeared on Minho's face. The old man, however, still looked a little unsure.